Okay, I have 7:30. We'll start the meeting with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I want to thank all the residents that might be listening in this evening. I'm glad you elected to call in and listen to the meeting. So we'll go next with roll call.
Basil. Basil.
Here.
Bickmeyer.
I'm here.
Bookmeyer. Butler.
Here.
Jordan.
Here.
Oprich.
Here.
Sabatino.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Bookmeyer. I have 6 members present, 1 absent.
Okay, Mark might just be a couple of minutes late because he was at the utility meeting, so he should be calling in here shortly. We'll give him about 2 or 3 minutes before we go on.
The solid boards are the perimeter and the rim board. Those are that's the decking there.
Yeah, there's 4 of them, the roof,
Right.
3 down the very bottom, and 1 more back here. That's the perimeter.
Perimeter and rim board. The facing.
I think Mr. Buckmeyer is on the line.
I think so.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I think we've got everybody then. Okay, first thing we'll address will be the minutes from the August 17th meeting. First of all, has Frank, have you received your copy of the minutes?
I have no nothing.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you received your copy of the minutes?
Yes, I have, and I have no questions.
Okay. Tara, have you received your copy of the minutes, and do you have any questions?
Yes, and no, yes.
Perry, have you received your copy of the minutes, and do you have any questions?
I've received them. I have no questions.
Thank you. Beth, have you received your minutes, and do you have any questions?
I have, and I do not.
Okay. Mike, have you received your copy, and do you have any questions?
Yes, I have, and I have no questions.
Okay. And Linda, have you received your copy of the minutes, and do you have any questions?
Yes, no questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone's received a copy of the questions, or the minutes. Nobody has any questions. We'll take a roll call vote on approval of the minutes from the August 17th meeting.
Do you want a motion first?
We need a motion to accept the minutes from the August 17th meeting.
This is Perry. I'll make the motion to receive the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion from Perry. Do we have a second?
This is Mike. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion. Perry Basil and Mike Smith second. We'll now take a roll call vote.
Basil.
Yes.
Bookmeyer,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Oprich,
Yes.
Sabatino,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All members are in favor.
Okay, the minutes from the August 17th meeting are approved. We'll move down the agenda. We sometimes listen to a report that Mr. Smithberger has as Director of Public Services, but as of this minute, I believe he's still out putting a telephone pole back up that was hit by a truck today, so I don't think he's going to make the meeting. So we'll move on down to the report. The first report will be the mayor's report.
Thank you, Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Mayor's report. It's been a very busy end of the summer for the municipality. Had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Kimball, the owner of Kimball Refuse, and this is a company putting the transfer station in next to Everett's on Route 40. And even though the city has no say in this location, I asked to see the plan and got Mr. Kimball's assurance that this facility will be innocuous environmentally as well as visually discreet. Spoke again with Mr. Greg Akers concerning the solar power possibility for the city. As of right now, it is a moot point because the acreage that was proposed for the site is privately owned and the owners are still not willing to sell. Also spoken to Donnie about other possible venues in town that could host a solar park. Also spoke with Mr. Rick Frio, who's another purveyor of solar technology, to speak with him about his company's offers and possibilities for solar energy. Again, site location is a problem, but we are working on it. I was able to attend a fire board meeting, saw a new fireman hired and sworn in. Good job to the chief. Met again with GDP Engineering regarding the alternate route through St. Clairsville. They had us meet with their engineer, Mr. Mo Dowali. We agreed the city needs a long-term plan encompassing a 10-year plan, a 20-year, and a 50-year plan. I've spoken to the new service director, and we will soon begin implementing this planning after the GIS data for the infrastructure is finished. Tom Murphy, I know, is still working on that, and it will be updated to identify where the pipes are, what size the pipes are. I'd like to thank Officer Wayan. He is now completing, I think it's the fourth week, the final week of training with Odin, the city's newest four-legged police officer. Thank you again for the generosity and the caring of our residents in making this ask happen so quickly. Once Odin and Officer Wayand are back in the field, I expect they will be a force to be reckoned with. I have received a letter from the Belmont County Soil and Conservation District, and it says in part, it is from the administrator who is, the Soil and Water Conservation Director. We have been awarded Cooperator of the Year for the Belmont County Soil Conservation for our efforts in working with them and in helping to make environment a big feature, and we are still looking to take care of our environment in the city. So we are happy and appreciative of your recognition and happily accept this award. I've also received a request from Rebecca Birch, who is the Executive Director of Rest Care in St. Clairsville, to declare September 13th through the 19th Direct Support Professional Support Week. And we have issued a proclamation that says, whereas direct support professionals are integral to the physical and mental health and well-being of veterans, senior citizens, and individuals of all ages with intellectual, developmental, and other disabilities who receive services for severe chronic health conditions, and whereas direct support professionals provide essential support and help keep individuals with disabilities connected to their family, friends, and community to enable them to live meaningful lives in a community of their choice, and whereas a direct support professional must build a close, trusted relationship with an individual with disabilities, and a direct support professional assists an individual with disabilities with the most intimate needs daily and provides a broad range of support from preparing meals and medication to personal care and transporting clients to school, work, and other activities, whereas direct support professionals, including direct care workers, personal attendants, in-home support workers, and paraprofessionals, are the primary providers of long-term support and services for millions of individuals with disabilities. Therefore, I, Catherine Tallman, Mayor of St. Clairsville, Ohio, do hereby proclaim September 13th through the 19th to be Direct Support Professionals Recognition Week, and I encourage all people of St. Clairsville and surrounding communities to recognize and appreciate the dedication and contribution of these providers to enhancing the lives of their clients. Thank you for that. I would also like to thank the Belmont County chapter of the NAACP for their gracious invitation to attend their meeting on Saturday evening, September 5th in Bridgeport. It was a wonderful opportunity to share fellowship, to meet and greet people, and to hear the chapter's philosophies and goals. I thank them for their generosity in giving me the floor for a few moments to say hello and to introduce myself. And at the season opening of the St. Clairsville football game, a tornado warning and severe thunderstorm resulted in the game being abruptly stopped. Football players from both teams, as well as cheerleaders, ran to the rec center seeking shelter from the fierce storm. Debbie Reed, the assistant director of the rec center, called me at home at about 7:45, informing me that the storm had caused about 75 kids to take shelter. It was herself and a cheering coach. What was the next step? I advised her I would be right there. When I arrived, I found about 75 soaked, hungry, thirsty kids in the center. Debbie was offering them water and coffee, but that was all she had. We immediately began calling a number of local businesses who donated food and beverages for the kids. My sincere thanks go out to Domino's, Newellstown Diners, Pizza Milano, and Pizza Shack for their generous donations of food, and Respect and Walmart for their generous donations of snacks. As always, our city really came through to take care of not only kids who traveled from 3 hours away, but also their own. St. Clairsville showed generosity and character again. God bless you all. And speaking of the rec center, I am very proud to announce the awarding of the Community Foundation for the High Valley Project, which is entitled Locker Room / Bathroom COVID Safety, Touchless Locker Room Bathroom Items, in the amount of $16,000. And that grant was written by Debbie Reed and Sean Hanley of the Rec Center. A check has been mailed to our organization. Acknowledgement of this grant can be recognized as Community Foundation for the Ohio Valley, Belmont County COVID-19 Emergency Fund 2020. And we are very, very happy and very proud for their hard work and the ability to obtain this grant. Thank you, Community Foundation for the Ohio Valley, Debbie and Sean. I would like to express my congratulations to them for their expertise, hard work, and diligence in securing this grant. The city is indeed very appreciative. And finally, I was asked to read a proclamation declaring September 14th to the 18th as National Chamber of Commerce Week. In conjunction with Food Truck Fridays, the reopening of the museum next door, and the hard work and participation of our wonderful merchants in town, Fridays in St. Clairsville have become the place to be. Thank you, Barb Ballant of the Tourism Office, Wendy and Laura Lee of the Chamber, and the wonderful St. Clairsville Marching Band for making our plaza come alive. And I did want to say something to Dawn, Jeff Vaughn, Anita, Annette, and Jeremy for the information that went into the water audit meeting that we had on Monday. For Wayne Cannon and Misty Tolsta, a great deal of information was collated, and they had that information to RCAP a month early. I so appreciate all your hard work. It's been a busy 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Wheelis. I believe that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And I will make one further comment. A couple of days ago, I was approached by Mr. Walt Skaggs, the superintendent of St. Clairsville Schools, and he could not praise the actions of Debbie Reed enough for the way she handled the storm during the ball game. So she deserves and gets a well-deserved pat on the back from the schools also.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get down. Frank, do you have any comments or questions for the mayor?
I have none.
Okay.
Been busy.
Okay, Mark, do you have any comments or questions for the mayor?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Tara, do you have any comments or questions for the mayor?
No, thank you.
Perry, do you have any comments or questions for the mayor?
Yeah, just everything looks like it's going well. It's a good job with everything. It's, St. Clairsville is coming around.
Okay, thank you, Perry. Beth, do you have any comments or questions for the mayor?
I don't have any questions. I just like to comment. I appreciate all your hard work and your leadership, Mayor. Glad to hear how that worked out at the rec center. You know, it's due to your leadership, and I feel like you should be commended on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Mike, do you have any comments or questions for the mayor?
Yes, I do. I guess the first comment would be, and in fact, I had called the mayor the night that the siren went off because I was getting some questions of what that was, and I didn't notice. Maybe they can put that in the paper, or is that every month, Catherine?
Yes, sir. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. Yeah, the tornado siren is being tested once a month, and that's what that siren is for anybody that heard it the other day.
Is it on a particular day every month, like the first Wednesday, or do they just anytime they think they want to do it?
I'll have Matt Irvin find out from the fire chief because I don't know, but we'll find out.
Okay, and then related to that, yeah, that's great that all those organizations you mentioned willingly donated the night of that football game. So, I just wanted to mention that, and I'm done.
Okay, Mike, I'll mention one thing here. The tornado warning is the first Monday of every month, and it is at 6 p.m. in the evening. Noon. I'm sorry, noon. Noon on the first Monday of every month.
Okay, thank you.
Jim.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Okay, Linda, do you have any comments or questions for the mayor?
No.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Okay, that concludes the mayor's report. We'll move on to the city's new service director, Mr. Jeremy Greenwood. This is his first appearance at a council meeting. Mr. Greenwood, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to be in front of you tonight or on the phone with you. Kind of wanted to hit the ground running and jumped into some various projects, and I'll give you guys a rundown of everything here. One of the first things that we've started to attempt to do is I've been meeting with Annette and looking at budgets, looking at revenue versus spending for the year because of all the issues we've had with COVID. All the departments so far have been keeping good track of their spending and the back and forth. We're looking at ways to save wherever we can, also reviewing spending procedures, supply, equipment, etc., the back and forth with that. We've also been doing department introductions, the police, the water, street, electric, wastewater, the rec center. Been meeting with the superintendents and the staff just to kind of do a general introduction of myself and kind of get some feedback from them. Also been doing individual employee meetings / discussions. Got 11 or 12 of those completed already. Just kind of getting some insights and ideas from them about what potential we have, what we could do better. Just kind of picking their brains on some things and projects. I do believe we have a great group of workers and guys with all the different departments. So I'm really looking forward to working with everybody. I also plan to continue with this until I've met with everybody and at least had an opportunity to sit down individually with them to go over things. Next item on there was we had a civil service exam. We had 15 people sign up and had 14 that took the test. We're looking at 2 potential candidates for wastewater positions. We're in the process of setting up interview procedures now and also scheduling the interviews in the next couple weeks. Once those are done, we'll probably have more of an update on that, but as of right now, it's just kind of where it's at. Some projects, East End water connection. I've been reviewing the drawings. I've also met with the engineer, Vaughn, Coast and Vaughn. Update on that. The county is currently reviewing the drawings. One of the things that actually came out of the meetings with the guys is that our maps on the east end of town were not updated a couple years ago. There was an ODOT paving project there, and we had actually replaced some of the 8-inch water line that's out there. So with that discovery, we've saved about 2,000 lineal feet of pipe just by actually reviewing the previous project and going through some of the stuff. Getting into funding with that, still learning where and how all of this is coming into place, but I'm being told that there's a mega funding for 50%, and that'll be through the Appalachian Regional Council, and then 50% of the loan for that project. I'm still dealing with the back and forth with that, trying to get all the information for it, but so it's a work in progress. Next item was Bellevue. As the mayor mentioned in our utility meeting, I attended the cammering of one of the residents' lines from their house into the city line. Our line looked really, really good, in great shape actually for the age of the line. There was like a steady flow of material flowing through the line, but not even an eighth to a quarter inch of the diameter of the existing line. I'm being told that we've submitted through the OEPA, the Ohio EPA, for funding through the Water Pollution Control Fund program, and then that there's also Ohio Public Works Fund still available for that. And these are all loan funding. And one of the other things that we're doing with this is also looking at potential alternates to help alleviate the problem and go back and forth. We've also been awarded some COVID funding, and we're actually looking at different supplies, gloves, masks, safety glasses, cleaning materials, PPE supplies, disinfectant machines, and UV lights to help disinfect the areas. We're actually looking at a touchless fingerprinting system for the police department. This will actually allow us to do our own background checks, submission, instead of just doing the paper copy. We're also looking at technology upgrades for the various meetings. Obviously, we're all still dialing in with the phone system, so we're looking at potential ways to upgrade that and go through it. Some equipment for the rec center, touchless restroom fixtures for all the buildings, looking at ways to potentially update the door hardware on all of our facilities, looking at potential for hazard pay for the staff with some of these funds. And also the utility office, we're looking at some plexiglass dividers for when we actually open back up, but also a pass-through window and upgrading that area there now so that the general public can be outside and still interact with the girls in the office. Also digital thermometers and some other things, with that. We've got a whole list. We got 2 pages of lists of items that we're trying to work off of and get some of these items taken care of. As the mayor mentioned, the rec center, they received a grant. So I'd like to say thanks to Debbie and Sean for working to obtain this. And we're going to be looking at upgrades for that restroom for that facility. Also been meeting with some citizens. I had a meeting this morning with somebody that was over at Bellevue and Overball about some stormwater issues. So we're looking at the potential remediation and some issues with that. I'm trying to dig into the history of all of that stuff. The mayor also mentioned the water audit meeting. With the metering of the public facilities that were not metered nor billed before, our water loss is approximately 30 to 33% is what it's looking like, and which is better than the previously noted 48%. But obviously, once we start purchasing water, that we need to get that down a lot further. So we're also looking at leak detection equipment and training. What this will do, allow us to look for larger leaks, and then help us to fix those before we start to purchase the water. And then along with that, we're also looking at the long-term replacement of the distribution system. Water plant repairs, EPA findings and orders. There were 2 items that were left to complete. One is the painting of some of the pipe, and that's left. My understanding is this is going to be completed in the next week or so. And then the other item is the retiring of the Provident Road Reservoir, which this is just an action plan. It's not going to happen yet until we get hooked in, but we need to have a plan in place for the EPA going through it. Some of the other stuff that we've been hitting on is the fire board. Obviously, there's been some issues with the charter and the number of board members. We've been working with Ben Esposito, the council for the fire board, and then we're also working with the township to discuss this. One of the things we'd like to do is go back to the 4-member board, 2 from the city and 2 from the township. Obviously, this is not a ideal situation because usually most boards you want an odd number of individuals. But one of brainstorming with Mr. Esposito, one of the things that we potentially came up with that we're going to discuss is having the board themselves elect a president, and then that president would not vote unless there's a tie, and then that way it's going to be a lot easier than us trying to get a 5th member onto that board. Also working with Hall and Associates for the emergency action plans and operations manuals and inspection manuals for the reservoir dams. That goes with both of them. That started, I guess, when the ODNR came in and reclassified our existing reservoir as a Class 1 instead of a Class 2. So we're still working through that. And then also met with the St. Clairsville schools to discuss the rec center usage and to offer our assistance for any future potential issues that they might have, and try and get a plan of action if there would ever be another issue like there was Friday night in place, so that it's a little bit less chaotic for everybody and we have a little bit more of a plan to go through. And that's really about it. The first week I was here, I had about 22 hours in, and then the next week I've got 55 hours in, and then this past week I've got 54 hours in. So we're burning some midnight oil on some of these, and I'm usually starting my day about 7, and it's been every bit 5 or 6 before we're getting out of here. So we're trying to hit the ground running and doing what we can.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. It sounds like you... Okay, thank you. It sounds like you've been pretty busy here the last couple of weeks. We'll start out. Frank, do you have any comments for Jeremy or questions?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Mark, do you have any comments or questions for Jeremy?
No, sir.
Tara, do you have any comments or questions for Jeremy?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Perry, do you have any comments or questions for Jeremy?
Yeah, good job, Jeremy. I stopped in and tried to track you down a bunch of times and finally caught up with you at some locations in town, and you were busy, so appreciate it. Thanks for doing a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Perry. Beth, do you have any comments or questions?
No questions at this point, just a comment that sounds like you certainly have hit the ground running, and appreciate your full-time commitment to this position. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Mike, do you have any comments or questions for Jeremy?
Just one question. I don't know if it really matters now, but never thought to ask this before in the prior years. But if you talked about having an action plan for the water plant. Now, when we do it to county water, are we still going to require an action plan, or is that on the county?
I do believe that would be on the county, but I'd have to check on that to make sure. The action plan that we need to do that I mentioned is how we're going to retire the Provident Road Reservoir so that we don't have the ability to transfer the water over. So I'm actually going to meet with Jeff Vaughn tomorrow and go look at it and go from there.
Okay, but in terms of having any problems in the future, I guess the city, we would take care of that, right? We would still have a staff of people in the water plant, or not the water plant,
yeah.
But the water. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
Kind of what the kind of plan is with that is to look at maybe transitioning some of those guys into this leak detection area, whether or not we can, pinpoint more leaks and try and cross-train these guys so that they can have some other areas to go into. But as of right now, there's no plan to eliminate positions or anything like that.
Actually, part of the 10 and 20-year plan would be like replacing parts of the infrastructure because some of it so sorely needs addressed, and that's why with Tom Murphy with the GIS, they're finding and identifying where the infrastructure is. That way, we'll have a project or we'll have a plan and say next year we're going to work on this section of town. Next year it'll be this section. So it's a cohesive plan, and we're being proactive and not reactive when we have a leak.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Some of that will be actually looking into some of the age of the system and the different areas, what size the lines are, because obviously we have some areas that, we have smaller, supply lines and such there. But also, incorporating into it, paving and some of these other options, because it would look really, really bad if we paved the street and the next year we came through and put water lines in. So all of these outside forces are coming into play to kind of direct and go and determine what, where our first area of action will be and then what the next phase will be and go through that. So we're working on all of that to try and develop all of that too. So there's plenty of fingers and moving parts with it all.
Okay, that all makes sense. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Linda, do you have any comments or questions for Jeremy?
No.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Okay, again, thank you, Jeremy. Again, sounds like you're off and running with both legs flying, so welcome to the city.
We're trying.
Okay, we'll move on to the police chief's report. Chief Arbenz, do you have anything to report this evening?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. August was about the same as July in our numbers. We had about 373 calls for service that we handled. As the mayor indicated earlier, our K-9 units will be finishing up their training this Friday and will be certified and on the road as a team early next week. Training, I've been told by Officer Lyon, has been going terrific. The dog's performing well. He's performing well as a handler. Yeah, we did run into one small hiccup. The K-9 Odin chipped one of his canine teeth during training, and it's going to require a root canal. I spoke to Annette about that because I'm not sure if the funds we've collected on donations will cover that cost yet or not, so making council aware that we might have to seek money from another place to cover that medical cost until our K-9 fund gets refilled. Other than that, we've been doing online trainings in lieu of live trainings because OPATA has canceled all live classroom trainings. But we found trainings that are pertinent, OPATA certified for all the officers, and everyone's been getting at least 2 hours per month of OPATA certified trainings. We recently finished converting our crash reports to online, So now all the officers do their crash reporting online, and people who need to get a copy of the report can be provided a card with a link on it, where they or their insurance companies can log in and get a copy of the report. As the service director spoke, we're looking into getting digital fingerprint scanners, which will help us submit all of those background checks and data electronically instead of doing the ink cards and having to manually put our hands on people when they come in and request that service. And lastly, we are converting the 12-gauge shotguns that the cruisers have into a less lethal weapon. We will no longer be carrying live 12-gauge ammunition. We'll be carrying less lethal ammunition. We have the sheriff's office made the decision to go with that last year. And in lieu of some of the other events that have taken place, I thought it would be a good idea to have another option for officers to take care of situations. So those will be coming in by the end of next week, and one of our officers that we hired, Officer Yates, is already certified to train everybody in that. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Sounds like you've been pretty busy as normal, and it sounds like the department's moving along and doing a really good job. Move down the line here. Frank, do you have any comments or questions for the chief?
Yeah, Matt, this is Frank. I want to thank you for your prompt, immediate attention last Friday about that vehicle on Orchard Drive. You dealt with it very quickly and sufficiently, and you were very efficient. Whether that was you or one of the guys, thank you.
Yep, no problem, Frank. Yeah, that was myself that took care of that.
All right, thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Mark, do you have any questions for the chief?
No, sir.
Okay, Tara, do you have any questions for the chief?
No questions. Just as always, good job, guys.
Okay, thank you. Perry, do you have any questions for the chief?
No questions, but I'm really thankful that Matt, you're really pursuing training for these guys and taking our police force to the next level. It's good to see.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Perry. Beth, do you have any comments or questions for the chief?
Just my appreciation, Matt. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you have any questions or comments for the chief?
You have a comment and a question, and I agree with Barry. I'm all for training, no matter what profession you're in. So, train, and you can never hurt you. Yeah, but my question is on the canine unit, and I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Are the canines specific to like? Is there like a canine that only is a drug sniffing dog versus a dog that will track down a suspect, for example, or you don't want to divulge that information? But I don't know what kind of a canine we have. Is that like a thing where there's different canines for different situations?
There are. It all depends on the dog and what you pay to have the dog trained for. Firstly, the dog has to have present the intellect and the drive to be trained for multiple tasks if you want that. That's what makes the selection process on the canine that we got. The one that we are getting, he's a multi-trained canine dog. So his primary function is a narcotics dog. He also can track for lost persons or runaway persons, and he can also apprehend, which is a bite and hold technique until officers can get on top of the subject and gain control. To get the dogs that typically have the intellect and the drive to do that, you have to pay for the ones that are imported from Europe, and that's what we've done with this dog.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Linda, do you have any questions or comments for the chief?
No.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Matt, again, thank
Jim,
you.
it's Catherine.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Jim,
Go ahead,
Catherine.
Catherine.
I have maybe a dumb question, Matt, but should we get health insurance on the dog? I know that a lot of vets offer that now.
Well, thankfully, I've Dr. Yurko down at Key Animal Hospital from Wheeling provides most all veterinary services free of charge for canine units. He extends that offer to the sheriff's office. I've got a personal relationship with Dr. Yurko. He told me when we got the canine that he would extend that courtesy out to us as well. But doing dental work, performing root canals is extremely specialized. There's no vets around here. They all recommend that you go to Pittsburgh MedVet or OSU. But there is a vet that the other canine handlers trust and have had work done that's out of Pittsburgh, that people travel down to St. Clairsville and do the work on Bowden. So typically, if we were paying for vet services, I think it would be a great idea. I have pet insurance on my own dogs, but providing that we get just about every other situation covered for free from Dr. Yurko, I don't think it would be beneficial.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Dr. Yurko. That's fabulous. Yep.
Okay, again, thank you, Matt. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to the finance director, Annette Williams. Annette, you have a report, and probably you can explain some legislation for this evening.
I'll do that. Hope everybody's gone well, and just want to welcome Jeremy on board. And from that report, he's doing an awesome job, and we've been working very well together with the mayor, and all the administrative staff here are very good to work with. They do a lot of work behind the scenes. Roberta, she does about everything or anything you ask her to do, and then Jen's been a really big help too. So we have a really good staff here, and the departments are very easy to work with, and I really enjoy working here. So I just wanted to let everybody know that you have a great staff here. And we just finished up our 2019 audit, so I spent about 2 weeks straight working on items for the auditors. They were actually here for 2 days, so the audit draft is actually available for viewing for council. If anybody wants that, they can email me and I'll send them that. But the report is not available for the public until we get the final draft on that. And I guess the ordinances, since Elizabeth isn't here, I sent everybody an explanation on the ordinances, so I hope everybody got that. If anybody has any questions, they can ask. The one certification from the county is just something we get every year. It's for the general fund and the police levy, what money we'll get from that. And like I said, that's pretty standard. And then, of course, we had the Corona Relief Fund. We received $208,703.18 on that. So we do have to appropriate that and establish the fund since we didn't have that before. And Jeremy and I worked on some line items and trying to figure out what actually will come out of those line items, what we would need. And then we possibly could have to move some money around within those funds later on for that dollar amount. And then the other one is just some normal reallocations, some supplemental appropriations for the year that's going to come about, like however many times we need to move money around just to meet the expenses, the normal expenses. So that's all I have.
Okay, and as I'm reading all of these pieces of legislation are are for emergency, and it is probably wise to try and pass them all this evening. If you could possibly, if council has any questions on that, you might be able to answer maybe a little more in depth of why they might need to be passed immediately.
Yes, they're basic for operations for me to be able to do my job.
Right. Okay. Thank you. We'll start out. Frank, do you have any questions for Annette?
No.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Mark, do you have any questions for Annette?
Yes. The auditor, the 2019 audit, did we get a clean bill of health on that?
I have the draft. If you want a copy of the draft, I can actually send you the draft.
Okay, and that was 2019. Mrs. Henry did that.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't have the final report yet. The final, once it's finalized, then we can release that to the public.
Okay.
But I can send you a copy of the draft if you like.
No, I'll just wait till the final report comes out. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
And I have another question.
Okay.
Ordinance 2020-29, transfer of $12,300 for personal services. What are those personal services?
Okay, I explained that, and I did send like an email today that explained that. Those are actually for Elizabeth for her costs because she opted to be paid, not have her firm paid separately like we did before. So she will be paid through payroll all of the for all of her services.
Okay. So that's our law director, Ms. Glick's wages then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Terry, do you have any questions for Annette?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Perry, do you have any questions for Annette?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Beth, do you have any questions for Annette? Beth, are you still with us? Okay, we'll come back to her in a minute. Mike, do you have any questions for Annette?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Linda, do you have any questions for Annette?
Yes. That on 30, the 2020-30, that seems very vague to me. I mean, is there a list? Is that all that was on that list, or is there more to that list?
Well, that's the list of the appropriation line items that we added. I mean, the list is very broad of what we can use this for, but they still, any purchases have to still fall within the UAN with the accounting guidelines. So, like I said, we may have to make some adjustments to that later. But that would cover mostly everything that we've talked about so far.
So you're asking us to vote on this without it being specific? Is that you're saying
right,
you're making they make adjustments?
Well, because we have to, I mean, we're allotted this money, but we can't spend any of it until it's appropriated, and we're still making decisions. I mean, we kind of have an idea of what we need to spend on some things, but like Jeremy just came in, and it's like, there's all this money that we have to spend, which is really good. So,
well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but is there any way we could see this list?
I mean, we can get you the items that we
that
have
would be good.
purchased something.
On 29, oh, I'm sorry, on 29, I'm a little confused because you said that was that was totally for Elizabeth. That didn't have anything to do with the Social Security or anything with Catherine.
No, because normally that would have been split out between the cost of the firm and between to her, but she decided that she didn't want to charge the firm, so we have to transfer money into that account, which it normally would have been paid out of the general fund to the firm.
Okay, I guess just a little bit of time. I haven't had enough time to figure these out. So, and on 28, that's just the normal appropriations, you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and we don't have a final report on the audit, correct?
No, not yet.
Okay, when will that be? Do you know?
Now I'll have to ask the auditor, but I can find out for you and let you know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jim, this is Beth.
Okay, yeah, I was going to get back to you. Beth, do you have any questions for Annette?
Yeah, I apologize. I got booted off the call for some reason, so I had to dial back in, so I apologize for that.
That's okay, no
I
problem.
just want to thank Annette, and I wonder if I could get a copy of that, if you would send me a copy of the draft report of the audit. I'd appreciate that.
I sure will.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to planning and zoning. Mr. Murphy, Tom, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Jim. I just have one thing that I want to talk to council about, and that's the 2020 census. Some of this information I might have already presented to you, but I want to be kind of repetitive intentionally. I'm going to explain a few things, and if you have a question, feel free to ask. But our self-response portion of the census is pretty much wrapped up, and St. Clairsville has a 73.2 response rate. In 2010, our self-response rate was 77.7%. That is a decrease of about 4.5%. Now, what I do my best is to try to be positive about the response rate and keep pushing people that they haven't filled out the questionnaire to take that. We are at the enumeration phase right now, which will end on September 30th. That enumeration phase is the follow-up to those that have not responded. According to the census website, the state of Ohio, on average, has an enumeration rate of 21.1% as of yesterday. The census does not have figures that they are releasing anyway for geographic information other than the statewide enumeration phase. The St. Clairsville stays consistent with that state average, which would be good, or higher. Then you add 21.1%, which is the current state rate, to our current self-response rate of 73.2%. This would mean that our overall response rate at this time would be 95.3%. That's my figure, 4.3%. That's just educated. That's from the information that they have released on St. Clairsville and the state. And so if we have that response rate at this time, that's great. Now that may be wishful thinking. Those are the best numbers I had go on at this point in time. And I wanted to point out, too, although an address may have been enumerated, so in other words, that someone's gone out and knocked on the door, that does not necessarily mean that someone was living at the home when they knocked on that door or was living in the home on April 1st. So they might go up to that door, knock on it, and nobody answers. And they go up again and try again, and no one answers. So it could be a vacant house or apartment. Or that person might say to them, well, I was living somewhere else on April 1st. So again, just because it's been enumerated does not mean necessarily that translates into more confidence. However, I'm optimistic on the figure 4.3 and trying to get a rate for the local area, but they said they don't have those figures at all. that's the main thing I wanted to talk to council about. There's been a few stories about the concern of St. Clairsville, whether we'll be a city or not. Unfortunately, we can't predict that, but again, I'm still positive. And I'll open it up to any questions council members might have.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We'll start here in a minute. I can tell you I have noticed and talked to some other people. There are a number of census takers going door to door this week, so they are, again, hitting a lot of the houses that have not responded. Okay, we'll start off with Frank. Frank, do you have any questions for Tom?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Mark, do you have any questions for Tom?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, Tara, do you have any questions for Tom?
No, sir, I don't.
Perry, do you have any questions for Tom?
No, but I'll tell you what, in my neighborhood in the first ward, I've been going to my neighbors and, a couple of people on each block and just kind of testing it out and seeing who filled one out and who hadn't. I actually found somebody who didn't let them to the website. So, we got to still be active and still talk to our neighbors because you think that everybody kind of follows along with it, and that's not necessarily the case.
Well, thanks, Barry. That's pretty cool.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Perry, Beth, do you have any?
Anything you can do like that on any ward, any council member, it's appreciated. When someone stops in here for a permit, walking down the street, if I start up a conversation with someone, I just talk to them and make sure whether they live in the city or not, it's a benefit to the county. Someone fills it out, please.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Perry. Beth, do you have any questions for Tom?
No, thanks, Tom.
Okay, Mike, do you have any questions for Tom?
No, no questions.
Okay, Linda, do you have any questions for Tom?
No. Excuse me, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to the council committees. First of all, we'll go to Mr. Smith on finance. Mike, do you have any report this evening?
I have no report, but I would like to have another science committee meeting sometime, maybe the week before our next council meeting. It went well last time, and I'll throw out some dates this time early, so we can make sure that everyone has a chance to look at that and see if they can make it.
Okay, kind of get in touch with the people on the committee and let us know, because we will have to make that meeting public. So we'll have to do a teleconference on that for people to listen in.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Does anybody have any questions for Mike? Frank, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Mike, please no Friday nights.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mark, do you have any questions for Mike?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, Terry, do you have any questions for Mike?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, Perry, do you have any questions for Mike?
I don't.
Okay, thank you. Beth, do you have any questions for Mike?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. And Linda, do you have any questions for Mike?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the utility committee. Beth, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, the utility committee met this evening telephonically. It was our first opportunity to welcome our new service director, and he gave an abbreviated report of which he shared with the full council this evening. We addressed some of the requests made by various residents, and we also talked about a couple of getting a lot of background noise. Is anybody else?
A little bit.
Sorry, I can't help with this on your Apple Watch.
So that's a little bit better for me anyways. And we also talked about revisiting the idea of a budget program, so that's in discussions, and we'll continue to have that conversation in the utility committee. And probably if we decide to pursue that, then obviously we would bring that to the full council. Anita, I know that we wanted to talk about reconnect fees for those who have had their services turned off, but I didn't know if you wanted to bring up anything else prior to that.
We were just going to talk about if we were going to add it or start collecting the reconnect fees when we do the disconnect for September.
Right.
And that's
Other than that, anything else?
No, not really. We covered mostly everything that you spoke of in the utility committee.
Okay. So then we would need council, I think that and Anita, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we weren't disconnecting anything for March, April, May, June, and then when we started disconnecting, then we had talked about whether or not there should be a reconnection fee, and that fee is $50. We decided not to charge that fee for the last month, so we need to decide whether or not we're going to reimpose that reconnection fee or not for September. So, Jim, I think that we would like to have council make that decision. We were at a deadlock in the utility committee, so we decided to bring it to the full council, which perhaps we should have to begin with. So.
Okay, Beth. Roberta did do a little bit of research on that while we were in between. Was Ordinance 2020-09 was where the full council approved suspension of late fees and disconnects due to COVID. So since they, obviously there's no disconnects, so there was no reconnection fees. But since council made the full decision back then, it probably it doesn't really specify in that specific resolution whether or when those fees would be reestablished. So since there was no decision in the utility meeting to bring to council, it would be, I would say, up to council to make that decision when they would want to reimpose a reconnection fee. So we'll start down the line and get an opinion from the councilman and see where we go from there. Frank, do you have any questions for Beth, and any opinions on when reconnection fees should be established, and if they should?
What color are we in as far as the state goes?
Right now we're yellow.
Yellow? Which means?
That's green is perfect. We're not as bad as a lot of places. The two worst colors are that goes green, yellow, orange, and red. There's not a lot of red right now, and we're at this point, like I say, we're still in yellow, but that obviously could change at any time. And again, I think some of the discussion was the question of the possibility of those numbers maybe jumping up a little bit since school is back in session, and within a couple of weeks that could change everything as far as what we are here in town and in the county. And but that's something we're going to have to wait a couple of weeks to see, because like I say, they just started full sessions with all students today, with the exception of a number of students that are attending online. So if there are cases pop up, the incubation period for contamination is normally 2 weeks. So we probably have to go a couple of weeks before we have any indication of what's going to happen, and see what information we get from the health department as far as condition of color condition.
All right, Anita, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
How many disconnects we have at the present time?
Well, usually an average of anywhere from 30 to 35 a month is what we disconnect. That's the average.
What's our number right now, then? That's
Well, right now
30.
it's high because the extension is till this Friday, so we're looking at probably over close to 150 people.
Boy.
But that will dwindle quite a bit by the time the 11th rolls around, which is this Friday.
Okay. Well, I would be in favor of maybe tabling it to the next meeting. But in the meantime, I would be in favor of also reinstituting the reconnect fee as well. That's all.
Well, and that's what's on the table now, right? Is just the reconnect fees.
Right.
Right.
Okay, Mark, do you have some input?
My input would be is I would like to see the reconnect fees be charged. If we're going to do anything, give the people warning. This is the date that it's going to go back into being a fee, and that way they can prepare themselves to take care of this. Call Anita, work on a budget, work on a plan, whatever they need to do. But I feel that it's in the best interest of the city to try to be fiscally sound and recoup the money that we, or get the money that we can because of the reconnection.
Okay, thank you. Mark, Terry, do you have some comments or opinions?
I don't have any questions, but Beth and I spoke earlier this evening, and I don't see an emergency to start charging reconnect fees just yet. I think we're still in a very delicate situation with people's jobs and things, and some people can budget all that they can try to budget all they want right now. It's not going to make any difference, and I just don't. I don't think it's that much of a pressing emergency to start charging people reconnect fees just yet, especially considering, Jim, like you said, with school just getting back into session, nobody knows what's going to happen yet. So I think as a courtesy, we carry through and keep doing what we're doing. I personally know that several people have reached out who are still having a horrible time trying to budget and pay and catch up because, there are people who are still off of work right now. And so, as far as that's concerned, I think it's a little early to jump the gun here and start charging reconnect fees. I'm not trying to say that we should shortchange the city by any means. It's just I don't see it as a necessity right at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Perry, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I don't know how to go about this, but if somebody's back to work and they could afford to do it, maybe that's a question we could pose to them. But if there's a real legitimate crisis in a household, that $50 is either you go for a reconnect fee or it's going to go for groceries for the kids. I think we need to be sensitive to that. And I agree, we need to be fiscally sound for the city, but I think we also need to really help out our citizens where we can, when needed to. So I'm with Frank. I'd like to table it till the next time, and let's revisit it and let's see where this school year leads to, and let's see if people are getting their jobs back.
Okay,
That's all I had to say.
Okay, Perry, thanks. Beth, I'll get back to you here. I'm going to bypass you a minute. Mike, do you have any comments?
Yeah, everybody has good points, and I agree with Frank to table it because I'd like to think about this more. It's the first I kind of heard of, or been asked to comment on this. So, and also, if the government's going to continue to make us wear masks, I think we can at least, be a little bit more sensitive till all this is over. But I agree. I'd like to table it.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Linda, do you have some input or comments you'd like to make?
Yes, I do. I agree with tabling, but I also agree with the fact that we do need to get back to the reconnect fee. But with warning, as Mark said, let people know in advance, beginning this particular date, we will be instilling the reconnect fee.
Can I add to that, Linda? I'm sorry. Can I add to that? I agree with you. I'd like us to be able to look at it on a case by case too. I mean, if you got a family in distress, what are you going to really do with it? If people can pay it and they're able to do it, and we could, we put a deadline on it, that's great. But some people need to be pulled aside sometimes and say, hey, are you okay? And I don't want us to just be a bureaucratic agency, just, with the handout looking for the money,
So, well, in the past, we have worked with people, so, I'm sure that will continue.
Yeah, I would hope so. I know we would, We're a good town.
Okay, thank you, Perry and Linda. Beth, the only thing I can say at this point in time, obviously, Anita needs an answer whether or not to charge those fees. Comes up from, what's the date, Anita, from the September 1st bill?
We will be doing disconnects the morning of the 15th, so I will need to know before the 15th.
Okay, so what we have to do is, the next council meeting will be the 21st. So we need, as a council, we need at this point to give Anita a decision on what to do as far as the reconnect fees on the 15th, or whether we're going to wait until the following month. So we're probably, Beth, we're probably going to have to take a vote on that, and somebody would have to make a motion to either charge the fees or to hold them until the following month.
So,
I haven't had
Go ahead, Beth.
Jim?
Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, so I just would like to offer my opinion. I'd like to offer my opinion on this, and I would like to say that what makes sense to me is to make a decision for this month and then to revisit it next month. Because I think, again, Anita does need a decision so she knows what to do next week. But my opinion is we are in the middle of the pandemic. If it truly costs us $50 to turn on somebody's utilities that we've disconnected, but I don't think that's a true cost to the city. I think it costs us something in manpower. But I feel like in the middle of a pandemic, when things aren't normal and it is an opportunity to work with people, then I don't have any problem with not charging the connect fees for the minimum of another month. And I do think it's a month by month. This is a very fluid situation, where I don't think anybody, well, most people would say that we're not at the end of this yet, but there will be an end to this. I just feel like, and again, if this were a true cost to the city that we were eating, but it isn't, and I feel like it's an opportunity to work with people. So I would be in support of not charging the fees for at least another month, and then we'll just revisit it again next month.
Okay.
Jim, can I say something?
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and I know I'm not being forced to speak your speech. If you're forcing me to make a decision now, I would say wait.
Well, it's really not a question. I mean, if council doesn't make a decision to institute or not institute, something has to be determined for Anita so she knows what to do on the 15th.
Yeah, it's not, Jim, this is Beth. I'm sorry, but just to clarify, Mike, nobody's trying to force anybody into a decision, but Anita needs to have a decision. That's why I'm saying that if we vote yes or no either way, but regardless, I believe that the decision needs to be revisited again in a month.
I agree.
Okay, would someone like, considering that, would someone like to make a motion to bypass the disconnect fees, or the reconnection fees for the September 15th, and will be readdressed at the 21st meeting for disconnect or reconnection fees being charged next month? So we'll need, if somebody...
This is Linda, I make that motion.
Okay, Linda makes a motion to...
Beth, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to delay charging reconnection fees on the 15th, to readdress it at the 21st council meeting and have that decided for next month. So we have a motion and we have a second. We need a vote.
Basil,
Yes.
Bookmeyer,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Oprich,
Yes.
Sabatino,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All members are in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. Anita, I guess we are at the point where there will be no reconnection fees assessed on the 15th, and it will be addressed on the 21st, and we'll look at that for next month, whether the fees will begin then.
Okay.
Okay,
Jim, that's the end of the utility report.
okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the police report. Mark, do you have any report for police?
I have nothing to add to what Chief Orban said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Streets on the north side. Tara, do you have any questions or reports on the north side streets?
No report, thank you.
Okay. Streets on the south side. Beth, do you have any report?
I do not.
Okay. Tara, safety. Do you have anything on safety?
Nothing, no meeting yet.
Okay, thank you. Building and grounds. Perry, do you have anything to report?
No, but I know that I'll be working closely with Jeremy and the mayor on going through our facilities and looking at what we have to do to make the changes for COVID with the COVID grant money. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's all.
Okay. We'll move on to the Planning Commission. Frank, do you have a report on Planning Commission?
I have none.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Fire District, Frank, do you have a report on Fire District?
Fire Board, we met in regular session on August 26th. We approved the resignation of a full-time. We hired a part-time, and we also hired a full-time. And I'd also like to read this to council. This kind of happened to the fire district. All right. On August 26, 2020, the Cumberland Trail Fire District Board of Trustees reviewed bids for a used ambulance, and it was slightly used at that. The Board of Trustees, being fiscally responsible, decided it would be advantageous to first look at used ambulances or demonstrators prior to purchasing new, due to the unforeseen fiscal future caused by the COVID-19. We received two bids, one from Hughes Fire Equipment and the other from 9/11 Fleet and Fire Equipment. The one from 9/11 Fleet and Fire Equipment was not cost prohibitive, and the other was approved, but it was sold prior to finalization of paperwork. The used fire equipment's bid was contingent that someone else did not purchase it first, and basically it was a first come, first served, which was the case. So we didn't come in first on that, obviously. So the fire district will now look to potentially purchase a new ambulance in 2021. And our next regular meeting will be tomorrow, 3 o'clock at the ESC Center. And that's all I have.
Okay, Frank. Does anybody have any questions for Frank for the fire district? Mike?
Me, Jim? No, I don't have any questions.
Yeah, okay, no questions. Okay, Linda?
No.
Perry?
No, I don't.
Tara?
I do not.
Beth?
Yeah, Frank, was that a letter that you read that somebody wrote, or was it just part of your report?
That's part of my report.
Okay, and did you say you hired 2 full-time people and a part-time person, or 1 and 1? Frank, did you say you hired 2 full-time people and a part-time, or was it 1 full-time and 1 part-time?
I'm sorry. We had a resignation of a full-time. We hired a part-time. And we also hired a full-time. And actually, the full-time that resigned, we rehired him as a part-time, which happens quite often in the department.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Tara, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay, and Mark, do you have any questions for Frank?
No, sir.
Okay. That'll move us on to ordinances and resolutions. Our law director, Elizabeth Glick, was called out of town, and she is unable to be here this evening.
Rec department.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rec department.
I'm sorry, Linda. I jumped the gun there.
That's okay. Flag football begins September 20th. There was a coaches meeting last night, and teams have been drafted. The Halloween event is October 24th, beginning at noon. And last but definitely not least, Debbie Reed has secured a $16,000 grant from the Community Foundation for the Ohio Valley for COVID relief for the Belmont County Emergency Fund, and it will be used for new touchless bathroom fixtures. And the next meeting is September 21st. The park, no report, and the next meeting is Monday, September 14th.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Sorry I jumped the gun there. Also, just for curiosity's sake, if you know, because of COVID, what do the numbers for flag football look like this year compared to last year? Are they up, down, about the same?
He really didn't say. I think there was a fair turnout, but I'm not really sure.
Okay, I'm just curious whether that affected anything or not. Okay, does anyone have...
I can find out and let you know.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Linda? Frank?
No.
Mark?
No, sir.
Tara?
No.
Perry?
No, I don't.
Beth?
I have no questions.
Mike, do you have any questions for Linda?
No questions. Right.
Okay. Just curiously, Linda, is there an official closing date for the park yet as far as the pool or anything that, is the pool shut down already?
I think the park is closed, but I'm not sure. Normally it is after school starts. You know what I mean? After
Right,
Labor Day.
after Labor Day. I haven't heard anybody talk, so I didn't know
Right.
whether they were just pretty much shut down for the fall. Okay, thanks, Linda. Okay, now again, Ordinance and Resolutions, and again, as I said, our law director had to go out of town, and we have 3 pieces of legislation this evening, all financial, and I think the finance director, if anyone has any questions, what we'll do, I think, since we'll go with the first piece of legislation, 2020.
Mr. Velas, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
It's on Ordinance 2020-29.
Okay.
The 12,300, is that the salary up to this point, or is that the salary for the whole year?
That's to finish out the year.
Why are we paying in advance? Why haven't we just prorated it for January 1st until today's date? Why would we pay it for the whole year?
We're not paying in advance. It just needs to be appropriated for the rest of the year.
Okay, so that wage is not going to be paid. It's going to be prorated until August or September 8th. Am I correct?
It'll be the appropriations for her for the rest of the year. It'll finish out her pay for the year. It's just because it wasn't originally appropriated enough out of that fund.
Okay, so there was nothing paid out to this point.
There was, but that's the remainder of it for the rest of the year. She's been paid what she was owed so far, but to finish out the rest of the payrolls, because the money was not appropriated, that's what the money's for.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll go first of all with first reading on Resolution 2020-28.
Resolution number 2020-28, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Okay, these are the normal appropriations for the year, as I understand it, Annette. So these are considered an emergency. Would anyone like to make a motion to consider this legislation as emergency legislation?
Yeah, Jim, this is Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'd like to move that the rules and regulations requiring 3 separate readings be suspended and declaring an emergency.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Beth. I'll make a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to consider the resolution, emergency legislation. We'll take a vote to see whether it can be considered emergency.
Basil. Basil. Bookmeyer.
Yes.
Butler.
Butler.
Butler. Jordan.
Yes.
Oakridge.
Yes.
Sabatino.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Basil.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
All members are in favor.
Okay, this is going to be considered emergency legislation. We will read it and then take a vote.
Resolution number 2020-28, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency. Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
Yes.
Butler? Jordan?
Yes.
Oakbridge?
Yes.
Sabatino?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
All members are in favor.
Okay, thank you. We have a 7-0 vote on Resolution 2020-28, and it is passed. Okay, we'll move on to Ordinance number 2020-29, and that is to address the, I believe that one is for the salary, establishing an appropriations for the law director's salary for the rest of the year. Jason, would you read Ordinance 2020-29?
Ordinance number 2020-29, an ordinance to make reallocations, supplemental appropriations within the funds for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the City of St. Clairsville, State of Ohio, for the period January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, that is the first reading, and this is merely an appropriation to be paid for the entire year. So will anyone want to make a motion to consider this emergency legislation?
This is Beth. I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Need a second?
I'll second. This is Mike.
Okay, Mike, we have a motion and a second. We'll now vote for emergency legislation consideration.
Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
No.
Butler?
Yes.
Jordan?
No.
Oakbridge?
Yes.
Sabatino?
I'm going to abstain.
Smith?
Yes.
That is 4 in favor, 2 against, and 1 abstaining.
Okay, we require to pass it as emergency legislation. It does require 5 votes, so it will be read at the next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to...
Jim, this is Beth.
Yes, Beth.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I just want to understand. So, Annette, does this mean that Elizabeth doesn't get paid?
There might be some appropriations left. I'm not sure. I would have to look. So, hold on.
And so, from my understanding, I mean, the way I understand this isn't adjusting the amount at all. This is just how we have to move the money, which we have always done. It's got to get into the right line item. Is that correct?
Right. And we do this throughout the year periodically to meet whatever we need to meet for payroll or payments or whatever. It's operational.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just mystified why we just couldn't do this. But thanks, Jim.
Okay. Again, the second reading will take place on the 21st at the next meeting. And it could at that time be passed as emergency legislation also. Okay, we'll move on to 2020-30. Jason, would you read 2020-30?
Ordinance number 2020-30, an ordinance to establish the Corona Relief Fund number 2151, along with the necessary revenue accounts and necessary appropriations, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, this is to appropriate the coronavirus funds, which we have, I think, a deadline in order to spend these. This needs to be done as an emergency also.
Hey, yeah.
Go ahead.
It's Jeremy. I just emailed the list to all of council that we had, the information the guys have, so they should have that in their email.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy.
That was it.
Okay, my understanding.
And Jim, this is Beth.
Go ahead,
Could I
Beth.
just ask one question about this? If we do not approve this, then we will not get this money. Is that my understanding correct?
This is just, my understanding is just to appropriate what we're going to spend the money on. We still have access to the money. Annette, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have to know where we're going to spend it because it has to be spent. There's a deadline on when we can spend this money or we lose it. Am I correct in that?
Right, we did receive the money already, so we have to appropriate it. And it's just a variety of line items that we can, we'll be able to use things for that we need to be able to spend the money. If we don't spend it, then it goes back to the county.
And it's all coronavirus related. It all has to be directly in connection with coronavirus, regardless of what it does, but it has to be for corona, nothing else.
Jim, this is Beth. So it's time sensitive.
Yes.
In order for the city to use this money. Thank
Correct.
you.
It is.
So this is Beth. I'll make the motion that we move in an emergency manner.
Okay, we have a motion to consider this emergency. Do we have a second?
This is Perry. I'll second it.
Okay, Perry, thank you. We'll now take a vote to consider emergency legislation.
Basil,
Yes.
Bookmeyer,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Oprich,
Yes.
Sabatino,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
That is 7 in favor.
Okay, so this will be considered emergency legislation. We'll give it another reading and take a vote to pass the ordinance 2020-30.
Ordinance number 2020-30, an ordinance to establish the Corona Relief Fund number 2151, along with the necessary revenue accounts and necessary appropriations, and declaring an emergency. Basil,
Yes.
Bookmeyer,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Oprich,
Yes.
Sabatino,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All members are in favor.
Okay, we have a 7-0 vote. Ordinance number 2020-30, appropriating money to spend for coronavirus, has been passed. Okay, that, at this point in time, that concludes the agenda for this evening. The next meeting will be Monday, September 21st at 7:30 p.m., and it will also be a teleconference meeting. And Mike, if you want to have a finance committee prior to that, let us know so that we can have enough time to get that information out to the public.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, at this time?
Excuse me, Jim?
Sure, Linda, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why are we going teleconference again?
Because we're still under those stipulations with the health department.
Why us if so many others are holding theirs in person? Isn't there a reason we could go to the rec center or?
We have to address that. It's been discussed with the law director and it's been discussed with the health department, and we have some issues that would have to be addressed prior to us doing that, and we at this time are not prepared to do that. And stay within the guidelines that we have to stay in with the health department. Believe me, I'm in favor of it as soon as possible myself, but right now we're not in that condition. Okay, if there's no other questions, I need a motion for adjournment.
So Mike, I make a motion we adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We have a motion. A meeting is adjourned.